So in a nutshell, I thought I would explain a bit here what happened to me as a child in a very brief way. I saw built a shrine to the Mothman with a friend. Soon thereafter, some of us experienced things like UFOs, aliens. I experienced a jump in my creative abilities, the ability to draw. I picked up a sudden inclination to photograph at age 8. And so we all of us, all the children who came into contact with this phenomenon seemed to have a jump in IQ as well. Many of us were tested, and many of us at our school were found to have higher IQs, and this sort of carried through, despite the difficulties involved with seeing something from the other side, from another dimension, and how that affects your relationships with others who may or may not believe you. Following elementary school, those of us who had seen the Mothman or come into contact with one of his forms, we split up. We were split up by circumstances. It was maybe 13 years later that I was brought back together again with one of my friends in 1981. In 1981, there seemed to be a confluence of energies that led to this meeting. I just had a sudden urge to find one of my friends from childhood, Harriet, who had seen a monster that looked like the Braxton County monster, who understood what the shrine had been about, and who understood that aliens had indeed visited us. I contacted Harriet, and amazingly, she had a story, a wild story to tell me, which was that my father had come to visit a medium that she had seen, a psychic she had seen. The psychic had told her to tell me that my dad had a message for me, and that I had to protect her. When I heard this, it sparked something in my mind. It lit a fire, it lit a spark. It stayed lit, and immediately I found myself embarking on a photo project that was to change my life forever. Also at the same time, there were some sightings in the area of Cincinnati, which is where I went to school, of the Mothman. And these sightings seemed to mimic the very sightings I had seen as a child 13 years before. So I did the photo project. I traveled around the country taking pictures of myself in a flying position at various national monuments. Jump ahead another 20 years to 2001, when the Twin Towers came down. Just as in 1981, I felt a convergence of energies, something telling me that I needed to contact Harriet again, even though I had not spoken to her since 1981. In the last 2 years, I've gone back to West Virginia a couple of times and gone back to some of the sites that we visited as children, or that we played in and around as children, and interviewed some of the people there, some of my family members, some of the friends involved. And I've also done a lot of filming here in Seattle and Texas. And there seems to be a connection between various people that I've met in these different cities who have had similar experiences. Of course, some of these These experiences in Texas and Washington will come later in Part 2 and Part 3 of this series. Part 1 is basically about the West Virginia connection, and I will focus on those folks from West Virginia that played a role in this and who were available and willing to be a part of this project. And now for a few comments about the photo project I began in 1981. As I said, I had just spoken to Harriet. I'd gotten a cryptic message from my father, and driven by a lake called Rocky Lake State Park on the way to school. Often I was always driving by this lake, and I always had a strange attraction to this lake. One night in 1982, I was driving by this lake and experienced one of the few, maybe the only, missing time experience in my life. I later found out that a Mothman sighting had occurred there in 1982 at that very lake. Someone had seen a moth, a tree that suddenly expanded its wings out and moved slowly. It didn't take off. It just spread its wings and then kind of moved back and turned and put its wings back in and in again, and it was seen more than once. And yeah, well, that was the context. There was something going on. The Mothman was reactivating in that area. Okay, I don't have the first image. I'll have to insert that in here. The first image had to do with me dressed as a Mothman-like character, sort of floating over the hills of Appalachia. The project then expanded into taking pictures that were reminiscent of Lee Friedlander's work. What I experienced as a child was two sightings, two paranormal sightings, one paranormal visitation, resulting in increased skills in certain areas. The two sightings were, well, there's actually more than two sightings, but the two most definite ones would be the sighting as I was riding in my parents' car toward Dunbar, West Virginia, to the bowling alley. We were passing the site, unbeknownst to us at the time, the exact site where Mothman had been seen just a few days prior, maybe the day before, I think it was. And as we were passing that site, I actually saw something flying behind our car. And it was as if I knew it was going to happen before it happened. When we left the house, I knew it was going to happen. As I say, I had already built a shrine to the Mothman. I was aware of him in the area. I was excited about it. It was one of the most wonderful things that had ever happened to me as a kid who loved animals and was interested in all that nature offered. It just symbolized freedom to me. Being a young person trying to adjust to school, it just exemplified everything I was hoping for in life, was just to be free and to fly. And if people were afraid, well, who cares? You know, the Mothman was freedom. Unfortunately, when I saw this thing flying behind us and I alerted my father, I was roundly smacked and told to forget about it. And my dad mumbled something about the government. You know, it's just a government thing, and don't get involved.